Relationship of engineering graphics and BIM. Let's look into the relationship of BIM applications with engineering graphics. In this example, we look into how engineering graphics supports ArchiCAD. ArchiCAD representation can be largely divided into two different representations. For example, how certain components look in 2D and how it is represented in 3D. A 3D representation is normally coming from the building materials, which has a direct relationship between the 2D representation. For example, the building materials that it's selected will be related with what kind of surfaces it has for elevation or 3D purposes. For different views, like plans and sections, how they can be represented to a different type of fills. And these components would be represented in different ways with different line colors and line types. So, basically, if we take an example of a building material, which in this context is a brick material, it would have two different components. For example, what kind of fill it uses and what kind of surfaces it uses. Currently, these two aspects represent how these things should be in 2D and 3D. So brick brown surface would be utilized for various uncut surfaces like elevation or 3D, whereas the cut fill representation in ArchiCAD is used for plans and sections. The brick material example here uses a brick texture as a fill to represent information in 2D. If we look into the cover fill, that is the representation for the elevational purposes, we can look as it uses fill that is termed here as running bond brick with a specific pattern. Whereas the surfaces of the texture is defined how this looks into 3D. These representations can be modified for different purposes in different ways. For example, here we have the same wall component representation in 3D and with different color fills, and in different views. Similarly, for the cut surfaces, we have the common brick hatch fill that defines the line pattern and the color. The representation of this information in 2D plan view is defined by the foreground and background color information. Here, the foreground is represented by the color 168 that defines the pattern of the line representing the hatches, and the background is set as window background, which in this context is white.